All right, rolling along into lesson one, determining your business structure slash entity. Okay, starting with the most common freelance business entities. You've got sole proprietorship, so that's non-registered and unincorporated business run solely by you. There's no distinction between you and the business in terms of assets. And then you've got a limited liability company or LLC, which you've probably heard of. So that's a business structure that is registered and offers some limited liability protection to its owners, aka members. There's also a third option, which is a corporation. This one's less common right out of the gate and is much more complex. So we'll just focus on the first two entities for the sake of this module. And disclaimer right at the front, I'm not a legal expert and I'm not an accounting expert. So as you're going through this module, this is for educational purposes so that you're armed with the information that you can make the best decision for your scenario. So just wanted to get that out of the way before we get any deeper. Sole proprietorship. This is your most basic form of business structure. If you don't form a business entity through estate filing, like an LLC or a corporation, but you just say one day I'm going to start serving PPC clients, you're automatically considered a sole proprietorship. Your business is owned by one individual proprietor or owner, that is you, and the business entity is not separate or apart from its owner. So your business's assets and liabilities are not separate from your personal assets and your liabilities. Advantages here, there's no setup fees. You don't have to, set up a business entity. You just start doing business. The main disadvantage of a sole proprietorship compared to an LLC is because there's no separation between personal and business assets, you're personally liable for any debts and obligations of the business. And in the eyes of, potentially judgy clients, it might not be viewed as professional as an LLC. All right, and then you've got limited liability companies or LLCs. So, like I said, this is a business entity that offers limited liability protection. That limits the owner's responsibility for business debts, liability, only to what an owner has invested in the LLC. There's also single LLCs to distinguish it from an LLC where there's more than one owner. So main advantages here, you've got personal asset protection because there is that separation. It's a separate legal entity. And for clients, it might also look more credible because you took the time to, make it official to register your business as an LLC. Main disadvantages is that it's not as quick or cheap to start doing business. There's some setup costs involved. And then you also have some upkeep. So every year you're responsible for an annual report and there's a renewal fee attached to that. So there are some disadvantages, but there's definitely some advantages as well. All right, which one should you choose? Now, this is purely just my recommendation, but I would say register an LLC if you plan on freelancing being your main source of income, or if you plan on making a good amount of money from it. The exception is that if you're freelancing on the side, so you've got a full-time job and you just pick up one or two clients, and then a sole proprietorship may be fine until you make enough money to warrant the need for liability protection. And with that being said, I personally have an LLC. I created that probably as I was leaving my full-time job and transitioning into running my business full-time. So if you're considering that option, if you search for how to set up an LLC, you've probably seen a bunch of done for you services. However, I recommend just doing it yourself. It's not very complicated at all. I will say it's at the state level and every state is different, but you should be able to do it online. So it could be through the Secretary of State website, a general state website, or just some other place for your state. But most of the ways that you can set up an LLC, regardless of where you are, is online. So my recommendation is search for setup LLC in your state, and that will provide much more relevant results. In general, if I were to broad brush, what you'll need to do, you'll need to file articles of organization. It's really just a set of forms that, you put your contact information into, you declare, your role in the business, XYZ. It's not that complicated. And you will likely pay a fee in order to register an LLC. Could be anywhere from $100 on up. Again, it depends on your state and where you're filing your LLC. All right. So in terms of action items, I recommend spending some time and thinking about which business entity is right for you. Say, for instance, you just want to pick up one freelance client while you work your full-time job. Going through the motions of an LLC may not make sense. But if you're looking at it from a perspective of, I want my business to be my sole source of income, I want to grow and scale and make some serious money with this, an LLC might be the way that you want to go. So if you are leaning towards an LLC, go to your state's Secretary of State website or do that search where you're looking for set up LLC in my state and look at the fees and requirements associated with registering an LLC. And then you can also brainstorm some business names. That's kind of the fun part, and see if they're available as an LLC in the state where you're trying to register. Depending on, the website in which you need to register, they should have an LLC/business lookup feature to see if your idea is available or not. One note that I have about your business name is you can be as creative or as mundane as you want. I've found that as a freelancer, the actual name of your LLC comes up less than you might think, mostly because the business in my case is me. So if you want to just make it your name LLC, that is fine. If you want to, get a little bit more creative with it, that is also fine. Alrighty, so this was a very quick lesson. So we're going to go on to lesson 2, which is crafting your service offering. So I will see you over there.